From our Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Aylia Batool. The deadly shooting in Sydney has brought to light an extraordinary act of courage. This and more on today's show, so stay tuned. Once again, Australia is debating its gun laws after a deadly shooting in Sydney, targeting the Jewish community on the first day of Hanukkah. At least 15 people were killed and 42 others wounded in one of the deadliest attacks in Australia in recent years. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says the National Cabinet will discuss gun controls amid concerns that enforcement has weakened in recent years. Police confirmed the attackers were a father and son duo, aged 50 and 24. The father was killed at the scene, and the son was hospitalized and is in critical condition under guard. Media outlets have identified the father as Sajid Akram and son as Naveed Akram. They also claim Sajid Akram arrived in Australia in 1998. Police and officials have not named the suspects publicly, citing the ongoing investigation. Australia tightened gun laws after the 1996 Port Arthur massacre, in which the killer, Martin Bryant, killed 35 people and injured 23 others in the state of Tasmania. However, reports warn there are now more guns in the country than before. The Sydney attack has reopened a national debate. In related news, the deadly shooting in Sydney has brought to light an extraordinary act of courage. Amid the chaos, a Syrian-born Australian Muslim, 43-year-old Ahmed Al-Ahmed, emerged as a hero. Ahmed Al-Ahmed was drinking coffee while strolling through the streets of Bondi Beach in Australia along with his cousin when he saw the shooting. He told his cousin to pass on a message to his family. He said, "I'm going to die. Please see my family and tell them that I went down to save people's lives." Jose Elkani told the Sydney Morning Herald. Ahmed, father of 2 young daughters, owns a convenience shop. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese visited Ahmed Al-Ahmed in the hospital, praising his actions as the best of humanity. Here is a special report about him by Muslim Network TV.
His name is Ahmed Al-Ahmed, a Muslim, named after the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, also called Ahmed, peace be upon him. A name that carries centuries of mercy, compassion, courage. And on that day in Australia, on the sands of Bondi Beach, that name lived again when a celebration turned into a massacre. Jews gathered for their Jewish holiday, hunted by men with rifles. And in the chaos, Ahmed did the unthinkable. He ran toward a gunman, not away, toward. No armor, no weapon, just instinct, faith, and the kind of courage that does not pause to calculate survival. He grabbed the shooter from behind, wrestled the rifle out of his hands, pinned him to the ground. He saved lives, so many lives, while risking his own. A Muslim man bled on the beach so that strangers could live. A story of bravery, a story of humanity, a story that could have rewritten narratives, shattered stereotypes, forced the world to rethink its prejudices. But then the media arrived. Jerusalem Post praised him, yes, for saving Jewish lives, but chose to call him non-Jewish, as if Muslim was too heavy a word to type. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu went even further, claiming the hero was a Jewish man. The New York Times, always quick to link Muslims with terror, suddenly fell silent when a Muslim became the hero. No mention of his faith, no acknowledgement of who he is. No recognition of what it means for a Muslim man to save Jewish lives in a world so determined to cast him as the threat. Was it really too difficult to figure out that Ahmed Al-Ahmed is a Muslim? Or was it simply too inconvenient? Because saying he's a Muslim would break a narrative, challenge a prejudice, and force the world to admit that the hero they needed is the man they are taught to fear.
Drawing criticisms over fears of widespread profiling of Afghan origin residents, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard warned of a direct threat from suspected terrorists inside the country. She claims failures under the Biden administration allowed about 18,000 known or suspected individuals to enter the United States. Speaking to Fox News, Gabbard cited counterterrorism data and said approximately 2,000 were Afghans who arrived after the 2021 U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. She claims whistleblowers told her vetting was rushed and screenings were ordered to be sped up. Observers say the remarks unfairly stigmatize Afghans who entered after 2021. Many were U.S. allies, including translators and support staff, who feared reprisals from the Taliban for siding with American forces. There is no evidence linking the Afghan refugee population as a whole to terrorism, despite Gabbard's claim. Security experts note that most Afghans admitted since the withdrawal are law-abiding residents. Reports also say expedited processing followed withdrawal plans agreed to under President Donald Trump. Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar says her son was pulled over by U.S. immigration agents. Speaking to CBS Minnesota, Omar said the operation was carried out by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. She said her son was released only after showing his U.S. passport. Omar said he carries the document at all times out of fear of being detained. She accused ICE of racially profiling young men who look Somali. Omar said agents are targeting people they assume are undocumented. The incident comes amid growing scrutiny of the Somali community. President Donald Trump recently called Somalis garbage while pushing for tighter immigration policies. In a cabinet meeting, Trump said he did not want Somalis in the United States. Omar said the president's obsession with her and the Somali community is disturbing. On Friday, Omar wrote to Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and ICE leadership. She accused the agency of blatant racial profiling and unnecessary use of force. A mosque in Texas remained open for prayers and community service despite a planned anti-Muslim rally nearby. The East Plano Islamic Center continued its daily prayers and a public food drive, even as anti-Muslim protesters announced a demonstration close to the mosque. Activities went ahead peacefully, with worshippers advised to remain calm and avoid engagement. Local law enforcement worked with mosque leaders to ensure security and public safety in the area. Authorities asked community members to follow instructions and report any concerns. The incident comes amid a broader rise in anti-Muslim rhetoric across the United States. Civil rights groups say mosques and Islamic centers have increasingly faced threats, protests, and intimidation. The Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, praised the mosque's leadership and congregation. National Deputy Director Edward Ahmed Mitchell said the mosque showed discipline and patience. He said continuing the food drive proved the positive role the mosque plays for neighbors of all faiths. CAIR also applauded police cooperation and urged elected officials to condemn anti-Muslim extremism. U.S. healthcare experts are warning of serious fallout as key Obamacare subsidies are set to expire. They say millions of Americans could face sharply higher insurance costs or lose coverage altogether. Without the subsidies, average annual premiums under the Affordable Care Act are expected to more than double by 2026. Many people may shift to cheaper plans with high deductibles. Others may drop coverage entirely. Policy analysts warn this could trigger a so-called death spiral. Healthier people leave the system. Experts say the impact will spread beyond individual patients. Hospitals, especially in rural areas, could see more unpaid bills. Some may be forced to cut services or shut down. Congress failed this week to extend the subsidies. A Republican alternative plan also collapsed. Enrollment remains high for now. But analysts say the real test will come when people first pay their first premium. Israel is facing a deepening mental health crisis inside its military. Details coming up next. Israeli forces killed a Palestinian teenager during a raid in the occupied West Bank. Palestinian officials say 16-year-old Muhammad Iyad Abahra was shot dead late Saturday in the village of Silat al-Harithia, west of Jenin. The General Authority of Civil Affairs said Israeli gunfire killed the minor. It added Israeli forces have withheld his body. According to the Wafa news agency, Israeli soldiers stormed the village at night, firing live ammunition and using stun grenades as residents gathered. Witnesses reported clashes and heavy military presence across the area. Jenin and its surrounding villages have seen repeated Israeli raids in recent months. The area is a frequent flashpoint. At least 1,093 Palestinians have been killed in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, since October 2023. Nearly 11,000 have been injured. Approximately 21,000 have been detained. Last July, the International Court of Justice ruled that Israel's occupation of Palestinian territory is illegal. The court called for the evacuation of all Israeli settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. The Palestinian Health Ministry says 9 Palestinians were killed in the past 24 hours in Gaza. The toll includes 5 previously unrecorded victims and 4 newly confirmed deaths. Heavy rain is weakening war-damaged buildings across Gaza. Officials say more structures may collapse at any time. Bad weather is also slowing the recovery of bodies trapped under rubble. On Friday, 2 buildings collapsed during a storm. At least 12 people were killed. Tents sheltering displaced families were flooded or washed away. Some residents died from exposure, local officials said. Civil defense teams recovered 20 bodies from the Salam family home. The house was in Gaza City's Al Rubble neighborhood, according to Goods News Network. Since the Israel-Hamas ceasefire began on October 10th, Israeli forces have killed 391 people. Another 1,063 have been wounded. Emergency teams have recovered 632 bodies during this period. 2 U.S. officials told media outlet Axios the White House sent a stern private message to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The warning followed the assassination of senior Hamas commander Raed Saad. The strike reportedly violated the ceasefire and was carried out without U.S. notification. Israel's genocide in Gaza has killed at least 70,663 Palestinians since October 2023. Israel is facing a deepening mental health crisis inside its military. As many as 85,000 Israeli soldiers are being treated for psychological disorders since the genocide in Gaza began. Tamar Shimoni, deputy head of the Defense Ministry's Rehabilitation Department, says the increase is unprecedented. She says nearly 1 in 3 soldiers is suffering psychological trauma directly linked to the attacks they conducted against Palestinians. Shimoni warns the system is under severe strain, saying a single therapist may now be responsible for up to 750 patients, making timely care challenging. Israeli media says the crisis extends beyond the army. Yedioth Aharonoth reports nearly 2 million Israelis now need mental health support. There are also rising concerns over suicide among soldiers. Military data released in October documented 279 suicide attempts over 18 months, including 36 deaths. Families say the figure reflects the mounting human cost of prolonged genocide. At least 9 civilians were killed in a drone and artillery strike in Sudan's South Kordofan state. 17 others were wounded, according to medics on Sunday. The Sudan Doctors Network reported the attack was carried out by the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. Shelling targeted a military hospital and nearby civilian areas. The medical group condemned the assault as a clear violation of international humanitarian law. It stressed that health facilities and civilians should never be attacked. The network held the RSF leadership responsible for the deaths and injuries, calling for accountability. There was no immediate response from the RSF. Doctors urged the international community to intervene urgently. They called for better protection of civilians, medical facilities, and unimpeded humanitarian access. They also demanded an end to the siege on the state of South Kordofan. Displacement continues to rise, with 455 people fleeing Dilling City between December 11th and 13th. The conflict has caused widespread suffering in the region. Displaced families in Somalia are running out of food. Conflict, drought, and rising prices are pushing already fragile households to the edge. A delegation from the World Food Programme, or WFP, visited an internally displaced persons camp in the capital. The team assessed living conditions and urgent food needs. Aid officials say hunger levels are alarming. Nearly 1 in 4 Somalis now face acute food insecurity. The WFP warns that 1.85 million children under 5 risk acute malnutrition. Somalia has endured years of failed rains. 5 consecutive dry seasons between 2020 and 2022 triggered a severe drought in 2023. Approximately 5 million people are affected. The country still carries the scars of the 2011 famine, in which more than 260,000 lives were lost. Aid agencies say urgent support is needed to prevent another catastrophe. Bangladesh has summoned India's High Commissioner in its capital Dhaka over concerns about election security. The move follows an assassination attempt on young political leader Sharif Usman Hadi in the city. Dhaka accused fugitive former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and her Awami League supporters of directing violence from Indian territory. The Foreign Ministry said such actions threaten Bangladesh's stability and the February 12th national elections. Hadi, a key figure in the 2024 uprising, was shot in the head on Friday. He remains on life support. Officials say he had received repeated death threats linked to Hasina's supporters. Bangladesh also raised concerns about Awami League figures now based in India. It alleged they are citing violence to disrupt the polls. Dhaka urged New Delhi to prevent suspects from fleeing across the border and to ensure extradition if they do. India rejected the allegations, saying it has never allowed activities hostile to Bangladesh. New Delhi said it supports peaceful elections and expects law and order to be maintained. The UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, Alice Jill Edwards, has raised serious concerns over the inhumane conditions of former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan's detention. Edwards called on Pakistani authorities to act swiftly, warning that Khan's treatment could amount to torture. Khan, who has been imprisoned since August 2023, was sentenced to 14 years in 2024 on charges of corruption and selling state secrets. He is reportedly in solitary confinement for up to 23 hours daily at Adiala jail, with limited access to the outside world and constant surveillance. Edwards emphasized that prolonged solitary confinement, especially for more than 15 days, is considered psychological torture under international law. Khan, 72, suffering from health issues including a serious spinal injury, is denied outdoor activity and proper medical care. Edwards has urged authorities to allow visits from his personal doctors and ensure humane treatment. Scientists in Colorado have developed a new window material that blocks heat without blocking the view. Researchers at the University of Colorado in Boulder unveiled a nearly transparent insulation called Mochi. It worked like high-tech bubble wrap, but for saving energy. Mochi can be made as thin sheets or thicker panels and fitted onto existing windows. Despite trapping heat, it remains almost crystal clear, solving a long-standing problem in building design. While walls can be insulated easily, windows cannot. Buildings account for approximately 40% of global energy use. Much of that energy is lost through windows. The research was published this month in the journal Science. Scientists say the material could cut energy waste and even help harvest solar heat in the future. Mochi is still in the lab, but researchers believe it can be scaled up at low cost. That's all from our Toronto studios. Thank you for watching Muslim News. We are a community channel dedicated to bringing you stories you can trust. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content. You can also comment to let us know what you think of our coverage. You can donate now by visiting muslimnetwork.tv/donate. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV. Salam.